All right, believe it or not, I mean, you can make your choice there. How do you think the Eagles' offense matches up against this Falcons' defense?
Well, first of all, I love coach talk, and it's always these guys are great, and the Falcons just got ran through last week. And so when I look at this, I think the Falcons' defense is in a bit of a tough spot. Last week, they get ran for 172 yards. Dalvin Cook, the whole Vikings offense, ran through that defense of the Falcons, trying to get to the edge, things like that. But now you put on the tape of the Philadelphia Eagles, and you see Deshaun Jackson, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Ertz running down the middle of the field. And so what do you stop? Do you pick your poison to say, okay, we're going to stop the deep pass and give up some run gains? Or do you say, we're going to stop the run, which we didn't do last week, and we're going to give it the big passes down the middle? And so to me, the one thing I don't want to happen is I don't want the run game to beat me and Carson Wentz to beat me. So they have to figure out what they want to do. Do you want to stop the run or the pass? Last week, they couldn't stop the run. The Falcons defense couldn't. Now they run against an offense that has the ability to throw the ball down the field with Carson Wentz and run the ball with Miles Sanders as well as Jordan Howard. They have to pick the poison. They're in a bad position defensively this week.
Well, here's the thing with the Falcons defense, right? This is an undersized group. They're really built to play with the lead. Where they ran into trouble last week in Minnesota was that the offense didn't do anything with the football for the first 3 quarters of that game. And that defense wore down. And that's why the Vikings were able to have so much success with Dalvin Cook and others with the rushing attack, because you got that big physical offensive line leaning on that undersized Atlanta Falcons defensive front. So I think it's imperative that Matt Ryan and that Falcons offense gets out to a fast start. And you're probably looking at them being able to take advantage of the passing game and the deficiencies that the Eagles have on the back end of that defense. We talk about it, the Eagles being one of the most talented rosters in the NFL top to bottom. Well, the area that they can be got is in the secondary with those defensive backs, mainly their corners. When you look at it, Avonte Maddox, Ron Darby, Sidney Jones, those are the guys that you want to go after. When you paid Julio Jones $20 million plus a year and you've got Calvin Ridley, another first-round draft pick, those are the guys, those are the matchups that you want to try to take advantage of. So for me, it's about Matt Ryan being able to get this offense back on track. Until that happens, this entire team is going to struggle because they're built to play football a certain way.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Kenny. You laid it out yesterday. Atlanta's first 8 drives, it was like block punt, interception, 3 and out, fumble, 3 and out. It was they got nothing going until it was 28-0 and the game was over. And Atlanta, I know they have a defensive-minded head coach. I don't know if he's actually good at that part of football. I know that that's what since he got the job being the D coordinator with Seattle, when back-to-back years they had the best defense in football by far, in Atlanta, that has not transitioned over. Maybe it's personnel. Maybe that's unfair to Dan Quinn. I just know since he's been there, none of us has looked at the Falcons and been like, man, that's a great defense. I don't think there have been many years we've even looked at them and said, that's a pretty good defense. So for Atlanta to have any chance, yes, they're going to have to get off to a quick start offensively, which I think will address some of your concerns for them on the other end. If they get out to a lead, then you can play the pass more heavy and not worry about Philly running all over you. Because if I'm Philadelphia, even if I hadn't seen week 1, I'd go into this game saying our offensive line against their defensive line, let's see if the big back we got from Chicago, Jordan Howard, can be the guy he was as a rookie. Let's see if we can run the ball repeatedly down their throats early, and that's even more compounded when you saw what an offensive line in Minnesota that's not very good. That's the weakness of their team, what they were able to do to this Falcons defense. But if you do focus on that as Atlanta, then D-Jack can hit you over the head. Yep. That's why I think you said it, and I think you're not the only one. Of all the offseason moves, aside from maybe Nick Foles going to Jacksonville, the one that could have the most impact on winning games was the Deshaun Jackson addition, because while Philadelphia already had such a well-rounded team, the one thing they were missing was the thing Deshaun has done better than almost anyone in NFL history. One play, huge strike, touchdown, and you saw that on full display in week 1. So it is an element of, this is why Philadelphia is Jenna's Super Bowl pick. There's an element of pick your poison. How do you want to get beat? And so for Atlanta, the only chance they have, and by the way, a game that's, what, a 2-point spread? Like, it's not like they're supposed to be blown out in this. They're at home. They're supposed to be a good team. The only chance they have is to make this a track meet, to make Philadelphia keep up with them offensively.
When I look at the last 3 games between the Falcons and the Eagles are 3-0. All of those games were in Philadelphia. You got to think about this. In those 3 games, Atlanta only scored 38 combined points, 9 sacks, 32 quarterback hits. That means they weren't able to protect Matt Ryan. Philadelphia was able to get after him, even with Julio. I think there was a couple passes where Julio absolutely lost the game for him because he didn't catch those balls. I think Philadelphia, Jim Schwartz's defense has found the answer to Matt Ryan. That means they're pressuring him off the edge, making him quicken up his reads, not allowing Julio to be able to get down the field and dominate the game that way. That has been helpful for Jim Schwartz and that defense. I think defensively, they continue that same model. Allow Fletcher Cox to get in to be a physical man up front. You bring in Malik Jackson with the injury. Now you have to figure out how do you get pressure off the edge. That's what the Philadelphia defense is all about. We're not going to blitz. Last week they blitzed. They got beat over top. I think this week they go four guys rushing, and they try to get out to Matt Ryan that way.
Well, you talked about the last several games that they played. I think that's enough of a sample size for Dan Quinn to know that this Philadelphia Eagles team is more physical than your team. That's the reality of it. Bill Parcells used to say this all the time. The worst thing that you can do in this business is fool yourself. And so Dan Quinn has got to know who his team is and who they ain't. And the reality is, I think that the matchup that you can take advantage of is that Philadelphia Eagles pass defense. Since the start of 2018, they're the second worst pass defense in the NFL. And since the same span, the Atlanta Falcons passing attack is the 4th best in the NFL. So that's your matchup that you need to take advantage of. Right. Like Nick said, turn it into a track meet. That's the only shot that they got because the Eagles on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage are a better football team.
But just quickly, when do we start having a Matt Ryan conversation? I mean, how much of...
Oh, I don't... years from now, okay. I think. I think Matt Ryan, he won the MVP a few years ago.
A few years ago
Well,
now.
hold on. So he won the MVP in 2016. 2017, he had a bit of a down year. Last year, his numbers were almost identical to the MVP season. Last year was about injury, terrible defense, and some heartbreaking losses early. Listen, I don't think Matt Ryan is some no-doubt Hall of Fame quarterback, but Matt Ryan, you can't... It's hard to make a list of 10 quarterbacks you'd rather have. You disagree?
Well, I think Matt Ryan has a bunch of talent around him. That's what every quarterback wants. When you have that talent, you have to win. He hasn't won consistently enough. I think that's the biggest thing that I would say about Matt Ryan.
Welcome to my team. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.